Bitcoin and crypto is crashing today, and there's a lot of people kind of up in arms because it kind of doesn't make any sense. We're supposed to be in this like bull run. November is historically speaking the most bullish month when it comes to cryptocurrency. We have stocks at an all-time high, we have gold still rallying, and there's just a lot of uncertainty when it comes to cryptocurrency in general. And so I want to give you my sort of opinion, outlook, and what I think is going to happen going further. So before I get into this, make sure you're subscribed, smash the like button. I give you guys real in-time updates with what's going on in the crypto market. I've been here since 2016. So I think that when you kind of zoom out, which is, obviously that's what you want to do whenever you're analyzing these kind of markets, there's no shortage of, bearish action that kind of looks like just everything's done, doom and gloom. Crypto Twitter is just kind of going crazy with like the bear posts. And I think that right now, if you're somebody who is very emotional when it comes to trading, the number one kind of advice that I would give you is to get off of crypto Twitter. Most of these guys either like they're not successful or they've made all their money in a lucky kind of way and they just think that they're a genius now, or they've like lost their money, they've gotten liquidated on maybe like, leverage trading or whatever the case may be. And so they're just kind of miserable. And they just kind of spew all this kind of like doom and gloom price targets, and nobody knows what's happening next. Not even the talking heads that you see on like, the news channels or like the main like, talking heads when it comes to like the big figures in crypto. Nobody knows what's going to happen next. And the best thing you can do is make a decision that's going to put you in a better position for the future. Now, whatever that may be. Obviously, there's a lot of people that are on the fence. They think that the price is going to crash further. There's people that think that this is just a huge, massive shakeout before going higher. And I think when you look at larger timeframes, I think that everything still kind of looks intact. There is a huge sort of rumor going on that, ever since the 10th of October's crash, maybe one of these exchanges is insolvent. There's kind of hints on like this massive like lawsuit that may be pushed towards a centralized exchange from a market maker. They're all kind of rumors, and so I really wouldn't worry too much about what's happening unless it's like set in stone and we kind of see what happens, and that's going to be for the foreseeable future. Now, I think that if you're somebody that is very over leveraged, meaning either you've taken on debt to buy crypto, maybe you're in leveraged positions, or perhaps maybe you've just put in like all of your money and you're investing very speculatively, like maybe you're in meme coins or like lower cap, layer ones or whatever the case may be. I think that right now is a very important time. Like obviously I know that things are down and it sucks, but you need to kind of ask yourself the question, what happens if we actually do go into this like massive bear market and everything goes down? Because those typically will go down 60 to 90%. And, the main thing is you want to stay in the game and you want to preserve your wealth. That's pretty much why everybody gets into crypto, right? And I understand that Bitcoin, wasn't very sexy when it comes to investing in it because everybody thought like, oh, it's such a high market cap. It's not going to get, have any close to the returns that I would be buying if I was buying like Solana or meme coins or Ethereum, whatever the case may be. And I think that all those people have been proven wrong this cycle because Bitcoin is pretty much like just going up and to the right, barring some like obviously some corrections. But to put things into perspective, we dropped to $105,000 today, and relatively speaking, we're still kind of intact when it comes to larger time frames. That's not to say that we're going to like not continue to go down, or we're not just going to go right back to all-time highs, but Bitcoin has been pretty sturdy, and it's gone from $15,000 to about $126,000, which is an incredible return, no matter who you are, right? Obviously, it's been outpaced by a few selective altcoins, but majority of the altcoins have not performed nearly as well as most people have anticipated. That's usually just because there's been so many more cryptos that have kind of been thrown into the whole crypto market, and there's just not as much money in the system. And when we live in an environment where the government is shut down, there's just not so much liquidity in the whole system. Outside of like obviously the S&P and like the stock market, not a lot of people have money to be investing. Right now people are just crunched for money, and it's just a very difficult time for a lot of people. And so I think that whenever we're kind of in this landscape, you need to kind of think about the overall picture, not necessarily just the crypto market, because in perspective, it's just such a small market when you look at the overall market caps of like the whole entire crypto market, the gold market, equities, stocks, real estate. And so I think that the immediate short term, I think that things are going to be very uncertain, and I would continue just to stick to a strategy where you're kind of preserving your wealth instead of trying to speculate even more, because what tends to happen is people either take on a lot more risk and they kind of double down from here, And historically speaking, like that does pay off if you get in at the right moment. But at the same time, if you're doing like leverage or you're doing, you're buying into what could be a huge downturn, that's usually not the best thing that you want to do. And just me personally speaking, what I've done is, I love cryptocurrency. I've been in this space, like I said, since 2016, and I had like between 20 and 30 different kind of cryptos that I was invested in. And so I really took this whole past, I would say like in the past month, I kind of looked at all of these cryptos and I asked myself, if I had fresh capital, would I be buying these cryptos again? And if the answer is no, then I would consolidate those into cryptos that I would, or I would just try to basically convert these into Bitcoin, because I think that if you want to speculate and you're assuming that the price is going to go up, then Bitcoin tends to move first, and then you see the liquidity flow into these altcoins. And so I think that regardless, Bitcoin's going to be the first mover. So whether we go up or down, the play, in my opinion, is going to be in Bitcoin, just because you're going to mitigate your downside and you're still going to have exposure to the upside. And then from there, if everything goes well, we have like these, the government shutdown ends, we have liquidity go into the system, we have additional rate cuts, we have quantitative easing, then that's going to be a better environment to kind of speculate into more risk on assets. But I think it's a very weird, shaky time. And just like understandably, it's just a lot of frustration. And so I think that, personal peace also is a huge factor when it comes to investing psychologically. People are very shaken up. And I think that if you're very emotional and you're just kind of affected by this, then you don't want to be investing. You don't want to be staring at charts all day, because it's just miserable. I understand that. And it's very frustrating, and everything feels down around the world, I guess, like if you're somebody who's just like overly exposed to the crypto market. And so I think that you want to kind of take a step back and put yourself in a perspective where you can just kind of like let the dust settle. If you have spot positions and you don't have an intention in selling, then maybe, find a way to distract yourself. Maybe focus on a outside source. Maybe it's like a new way to generate income so that you could continue to dollar cost average, or it's just something fulfilling, maybe going to the gym, going outside for walks, getting out in nature, spending time with family, loved ones, friends. It's a really good time to do so, because there's just so much uncertainty. And I think more than ever, the world is in a very weird place. And I think that people prioritize different things at different times. And finances and making money in crypto is great, but if you're not enjoying life and you're just constantly stressed, then what's the point? So I'm gonna say all that to say this. I think that if you're very overly exposed, I would look into consolidating into more sturdy kind of investments, preparing for both the downside and the upside. And if you're somebody that's just overly stressed, you're just staring at charts and just scrolling Twitter and like watching all like the doom and gloom, I would highly suggest look into some kind of either passion or hobby that's either going to pay you or at least give you some sort of peace of mind while this dust settles. So if you like the content, smash the like button, share this video with a friend that's probably going through it, and continue to ask me your crypto questions. I will see you all soon. Bye.